welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for a Talk Magic, and I am here with one of my favorite performers. Genuinely, I have never laughed so hard as when I see this man perform. I remember the first time I saw him perform, I was like, who is this guy? This is incredible. And I've been a huge fan ever since. He's an incredible performer, a creator, an innovator, and highly respected in the whole of the Magic community. And I am, of course, talking about the man of many faces, the one and only Jasper Blakeley. How you doing, Jasper?
Hey, hi, I'm very well. Thank you for having me on here, Craig. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much. I know how busy you are. I know you've got a million things on. So the fact that you found time, I really appreciate it. And it's true what I said. I've wanted you on for a while. I genuinely think, and you know I've got a reputation for saying what I think, I genuinely think you're one of the funniest and most engaging performers I've ever seen. Yeah, you really are. And you know, you personify a certain style of performance that's just very different and very creative and very just great. And I remember, like I said, when I first saw you, everyone had been saying, have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? I was like, no, I haven't seen him. So I went to see you. And I think it was like an after show in the IBM years ago. Like we're talking about 10 or 11 years ago. That's the first time I saw you perform. And you just tore the house down. Like, it was just like a whirlwind that went through that room.
Oh, God.
Oh, it was amazing. And I remember I was sitting there thinking, you know, I've seen so many magicians that perform in front of other magicians and really struggle to engage them. And you had every single person on the edge of their seats. And it wasn't about the magic. It was about they just couldn't stop laughing. And that's that you just can't teach that. That's just such a skill. So thank you. Like I say, I'm a huge fan, always have been.
That's really kind. That's a hell of a platform to put me onto. People are going, yeah, I've never heard of him. It's not that funny. What was the question I was going to ask was it the IBM? It wasn't up in Tyneside, was it? It wasn't the midnight show.
I think it was.
Oh God, that was quite an infamous one where I played 3 different characters. Was that the one you saw?
Oh no, show character.
Right. Okay. That was yeah. There's too many stories, and this is a PG channel, so there are elements of that which were. Very briefly, if anyone knows, I did. Oh God, I can't believe you saw that one. Things have changed since then. I'm not quite like I kind of am, I suppose. I did my quite camp balloon modeler called Fabio Bendi, balloon modeler to the stars. I followed it up with Uncle Al, the kiddies pal, who's a deranged children's entertainer, who had some certain issues as well. And then I finished with Kockov doing the live Russian roulette. And I remember in the front row, actually, there was David Williamson and there was Bob Sheets. I know there was Elsden, John Archer at the back. Obviously, you were there. There were David Penn was there. There were loads of other people there and other magicians, Paul Romani, who I ended up doing work with as well. Some really, really good magicians there. And I just remember it's like they were literally like this. They were like they had no idea what was happening, and it was like Pete, what's his name, Martin Duffy, had rung me up and said, "Hi, Jasper, come on, do this. Come and do the show. Like, you know, get on. I'd be absolutely great." Actually, I'm doing more Michael Murray than Duffy. Anyway, the point being is, he said, "Oh, come on and do it." He said, "The midnight show, you can do what you want." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Absolutely, no holds barred. It's midnight. They're up for it." I said, "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." No. Are you really sure?" And he was, "Oh yeah, everything. You can do whatever you want." So I went out there, and you could just see this shell-shocked people as I just went at it. And the bit I do remember, just very briefly, is I'm doing the Russian roulette. Now then, it's before I became more controlled doing the guns to the head, and I had these revolvers. But I started doing this, you see. A British audience doesn't care if you wave the gun around. But every time I did like this, Bob Sheets and David Williamson were ducking every time, because their American psyche said, "Man with gun, duck." They were literally going like every time I did it. I said, "They've got a twitch." Oh, there was Steve Axtell at the back. And he had these animatronic monkey things. And I did a Rocky Raccoon as Uncle Al with David Williamson there. And I was just like, "Hey, David." I was like, "Well, what's going on?" Like, "David, watch and learn. And I had the Rocky, I did all of it. It was an Axtell. Anyway, yeah, you see, I get excited because I remember these. That was an absolute, it was 2 in the morning. I was doing Russian roulette at 2 in the morning. And if you know how it works, put it this way, you need your eyesight. And I'm going, that is the right gun, isn't it? And it was really, there were moments of it, but hey, there you go. Anyway, yeah. Well,
wow. But you know what? People are going to think what Uncle El the kid is pal, but I want to get into this in a minute.
Yeah.
You're very character driven, and there's so much we can learn from the various different characters that you've created over the years, and that's something that's really personified your career. But before we get into any of that,
yeah,
just for the people in America that are watching this that have no idea what we're talking about, let's just give them some reference.
Yeah.
Let's just very quickly talk about your origin story and how you get into magic and how that all came about. So what's your origin story, Jasper? How did you
I can do it really, really quickly. I've done it enough times to do it, and then we'll try and encapsulate it. So I originally trained as a dancer, unbelievably. So I used to do ballet dancing as a kid. Then I went and ended up doing contemporary dance, and I went to university to do that. But whilst I was there, I realized I didn't really want to do that because I was a musician as well, a classically trained singer, violinist, pianist, that kind of stuff. I've always been a performer. So I changed to do drama as a performance arts degree. Having left that, I realized I did all the West End auditions and stuff, and it became this is in the 90s, so 89, 92, I graduated. So I found very quickly working in the West End, trying to work in the West End and all the auditioning things, I couldn't face the rejection. I found it just too difficult to be an actor and a performer. It was like, oh God. So I retrained to be a journalist. So I became a radio journalist and got a qualification in that. And then I went on loads of other jobs in the radio industry, but I ended up producing one of the biggest shows in the UK at the time, which was the Pepsi Chart with Dr. Fox. So that used to be on commercial radio. So I was there 2.5 years. I produced the 1996 Atlanta Olympics with Jim Rosenthal from ITV as one of my first gigs. That was for national radio. And then on to work with, through there, I came to this thing called content and new media. It was a new thing. So I started filming. I was an entertainment news reporter and editor. So I've interviewed hundreds of really famous people. I've been flown around the world, interviewed people. So that kind of got me to the point of, I don't care who you are, how famous you are. We've got a job to do, which really helped me when it came to performing for people who are certain people, billionaires, millionaires, that kind of stuff. I have no real nerves about doing any of that kind of stuff. So a very kind of strange world I was in, meeting famous people and doing that kind of stuff. And then I was asked to come and launch a radio station in Wales in 2000. And we got married, me and my wife got married, we wanted to start a family. So we came to South Wales, Barry, near Cardiff, to help launch a big regional radio station called Real Radio. I worked there as the creative producer. So I used to produce for another radio station, international. I used to produce radio commercials in 12 languages: Urdu, Gujarati, Punjabi, Hindi, Tamil, Spanish, Hebrew, Arabic, and Mandarin, I think. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Moving on, lots of stuff, creating stuff, audio creating and editing, radio producing and production and writing and doing pitches for shows and TV and radio and that kind of stuff. But the magic came. I did it as a kid with a friend, and it was always magic that goes wrong. So we used to learn stuff and then just get it wrong. I'm about 10 at this age, but messing around with TTs and silks and stuff like that, and I learned to juggle with him and stuff. But I didn't go back to it until I was in about 93. I was in London. I went to the City Literary College, and I actually went on a course, an 8-week course with a guy called Michael Dow. Michael Dow is the guy who started Men with Coats, who's that corporate, yeah. So brilliant, yeah, really, really good magician, but went on to do that. So he taught, so I was learning stuff, and I still do stuff I learned on that course in my professional thing, because they were really good, solid basics of magic. And it was through the City Literary College, which is like it's a higher education kind of thing. You pay it was a brilliant course. And I'm sure that, there were other people who went on to do other stuff, but it was an extraordinary little jewel anyway. So I learned that, but I never touched it again for years till I was 33, and I was made redundant from the radio station. And I realized that I had twins, and I was a house husband for 20 months with these twins, and I was going out of my mind. I needed to get a job to make money in a short space of time. I remembered I liked magic, so I found a number, Cardiff Magical Society. I went and joined that, and then very quickly, within 2 years, I found that I had an affinity for doing magic, and I started doing close-up magic, and then children's entertaining as well. And the first close-up gig I ever got was with two other magicians for the Birmingham Hilton Metropole, for the British Standards Institute, 800 people round black tie. First ever close-up gig. I had to go out and do 15 tables in 2 hours around that. The first ever close-up gig. Actually, that's a lie. It was the second. The first one I did was in Wales, in Cardiff, in a club, a private event for a corporate thing, and I walked in. But before I got to that, I had to try and save a man's life by giving him CPR, because I saw him collapsed in a car park. So I was half an hour late for it. The paramedics came. I was working I walked over, saw a man lying on the ground by his car, and I saw another guy walk to us. We never said a word to each other. He saw the guy, I saw the other guy. We both saw the guy. We walked over. I immediately went to do chest compressions. We said nothing. He immediately went to do, at the time, you still did do mouth to mouth. So he went to do mouth to mouth. I was doing that. We worked on the guy for 20 minutes till the paramedics came. And then, sadly, the guy died actually of a heart attack. Anyway, but the point is, I was a bit kind of like, well, that was a bit weird. And I turned up and said, oh, you're late. And it was like, yeah, why was that? Well, the truth is this. So I had this, they were like, really? I went, yeah. So yeah, but the idea of you always carry on. I think the idea of the show must go on. I'd already got ready for this and did that. Anyway, so yeah, so I quickly, back to the other bit. I do talk a lot, sorry, and quickly, because I think life is short. There's not much editing to do on this. And anyway, so we get to the point where I then started doing close-up magic and very quickly became a member of the Magic Circle. I worked in a multi-million-dollar illusion show in Las Vegas. I started lecturing to people. I started creating characters, and I eventually found that I was good at what I did and created some DVDs with Alakazam, and then did some books and magazines, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that was kind of it. And eventually I ended up owning a theatre. Anyway, there we are.
Well, that's the abridged version. I want to delve into a couple of those things, a little bit more detail. But I mean, you've done so much. I find it really interesting, and I didn't know this. That you didn't properly get into magic until the age of 33.
Correct.
Because I get asked the question on this channel all the time. Oh, is it too late for me to become a professional magician? I mean,
no. I have a true belief, which is the performance aspect of being a magician is way harder. Because I'm lucky, I've always performed my entire life. I was dancing in front of hundreds of people at the age of 5. It never fazed me. It was fine. I've got no problem with being gregarious and the rest of it. But I honestly believe that you can take pretty much anybody who's a performer and turn them into a magician. Now, that's not to decry anyone who's a magician, say, oh, the skills you've got to learn it and the rest of it. I said, I'm not entirely convinced, because I still think that if someone, the other interesting thing is, if you are a magician and you turn up somewhere, they expect you to be able to do the tricks. The magic is a given. That's just a given. You said you're a magician, a given. It's everything else that is the important thing. And that we always bang on about it, and we banged on it for years, which is the effect is so tiny. It's 10%. The actual performance of it is everything. So I deliberately have done whole sets where I've said, challenge myself, said, everything I'll do will be self-working. Everything uses a gimmick. Everything could be taught to anybody. And can I make it work? Can I take 4 playing cards? Can I do 12 minutes where people are laughing so hard and I just have 4 playing cards? And I did. I've done that before as a little challenge. And yet I can do 15 minutes with 4 cards. I used to do a show when I was working with kids where I'd have a spoon, a chop cup, a piece of rope, a handkerchief, and a coin, and I'd do an hour. And the point is, and that was, you'd have to stand up, and I'd challenge myself, say, go on and just do an hour, 45 minutes, hour, because the rest of it was just messing about. And it was that minimal prop. Could I fit everything in for an hour for a kid's in my pockets? And the answer was yes. Obviously, then you've got to expand it, I think, because then people do expect certain things. But if you're stuck and that's it, and I've done it and challenged myself. So yeah, it's 100% the performance rather than the trick. Although the trick has to be good. I mean, don't forget, it still has to be some strong magic in there. Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, that's absolutely true. I want to ask you a question. You mentioned about how when you first started, it was mainly close-up kids. Most people that know you, Jasper, they know you as a stage performer.
Yeah.
Did you all, and obviously with your background with the West End and so on and so forth, did you?
I never performed in the. No, let's be clear. I never performed in the West End. I auditioned in the West End, but so don't say the West End. I'm in the West End of Barry in South Wales now. We'll say I'm in the West. I perform in the West End twice a week, absolutely, but never the West End in London. I mean, that would be stretching it a little bit. I have, but in clubs, but that's different. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Okay, absolutely. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted the flow.
But with your background, obviously, you have experience performing on stage. When you decided, hey, I'm going to be a magician, did you want to go into stage immediately, and it was just like, well, it's easier to get close-up work, or did you transition into that over time? How did that happen?
Well, the interesting thing was I started meeting magicians, and I very much realized that we're pretty much a damaged lot. And and I'll put myself in there with that to a degree. I do this in my lectures and explain it, and please, no one take offense, but you're talking about why does someone become a magician, or what is their background? Because people's backgrounds really does then influence how they are as performers. So you generally got people who are introverts, people who are socially awkward, People who want to get girls but can't have relationships are difficult. Why do people start off doing magic? Because they'll start doing silent acts when they're younger, because they don't have to communicate. They can stand and they can spend hours on their own practicing manipulations and stuff. They don't actually have to engage with anybody older than themselves. And that's why also, you know, that's why so much those silent acts can develop, and you don't have to have involvement with anybody else. You just work into a mirror and producing these kind of things. And I think that we come from a lot of magicians come from very socially awkward things. They'll carry on those social awkward traits that they have into their adult life, which then can translate, unless they've addressed them, into their professional life as magicians. And that's why so many times people say, he's a great magician, but he doesn't engage me as a performer, or they're quite difficult. I'm not saying that's everyone, but clearly I think it is quite a lot of people have that problem. They'll have learnt the magic. As I said, the magic is a given. If you're a magician, they expect the tricks to work. But it's that whole performance thing that people say. So when people say, oh, how to become a better magician? Then the answer is get acting classes, go and join a local theatre, stand up as much as you can and perform on stage. And that's the difference. So what's performing on stage got to do with being a close-up magician? As soon as you start having to stand up and address people, you suddenly realize that there's no small talk. You're performing, all eyes are on you, and you've got to deliver. And therefore that can then translate to when you're working close up, because as we know, all close up really is when you're doing mix and mingle rather than or even around a table. They are shows, they are mini shows. You're walking in cold. It's a lot harder doing close up in a corporate environment on, you know, weddings and the rest of it to a table, because you're doing 6, 7 or 8 times. You're starting from cold at a new stage. You arrive, you're starting cold. And that's it. But you've got to do that 8 times. It's a lot harder than me having 90 minutes in the same audience, and I've got 2 45s with an interval, and I can work. Oh, that's much easier, because you've got them warm. They're getting used to you. You can do running gags. A gag can run. I do gags that run 90 minutes. In fact, run 4 hours, because they, you know, and the way I work my shows in the theatre, or even wherever I am. And that's the difference. It's that idea that, you know, so the question was the transition from going close up to doing stage was very, very straightforward for me, because I didn't really see any difference, because from being close up and being on stage, there is no difference. It's just scale. I mean, I did working as Kockov, and people may know that. He may put some images up, but I work as the Russian magician Kockov, and became a UK headline stand-up comic with him. So I've done a lot of the big clubs in the country, and the biggest one I did was the V Festival. People like Tim Minch and Sean Locke, and 2,000 people on stage as Kockov doing a 30-minute set to a 10 to 2,000. And it was that, once that thought in your mind is, how can Kockov scale up? You know, I've done things with sort of 1,200 people, 1,000 people, maybe the rest of it, but does he scale up? Because some acts won't, some acts can't scale. And without the benefit of video screens and the rest of it, how does one individual on stage have 2,000 people in tent? How do you, even though you're mic'd up and the rest of it? And therefore I realized he could scale up. He does scale up. So it's that idea of, some comedians can work in stadiums, some can't. Some performers can work in big environments and some can't. Fortunately, I found that I can. But it makes no difference. So I make no allowance to whether I'm in my theatre, by the way, now. So I'm looking at what 20. I've set out 16 chairs here. I can have to 25 in here. I make no allowance to whether that's 25, 2,000, or if it's 6. So the thing is, it's you have to. Everything's about commitment for me. It's all about, you have to show you're committed to what you're doing, and the number one thing is enthusiasm. You have to show that you love what you do every moment you're performing, because people believe you love what you're doing, they will love what you're doing. If you look like you're pissed off and hate the kids, then they're going, he pissed off, he hates the kids. Yeah, so that's it. So the transition was easy for me because of that, because I'd always performed, and I didn't see the difference between close up and doing stage. There's no difference. It's actually easier because they're sitting down watching you.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. Great advice for anybody who's wanting to do that.
Yeah.
Where did the characters come in? I mean, when you first started performing, was it as Jasper Blakeley, and then what made you kind of think, you know what, I need to create a character?
That was very straightforward. I was at university, and I did a couple of shows there, like one-man shows there, and I did one. Yeah. Oh God, you think the stuff I did now was extreme. So I'm at university, and they said, "Oh, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to do a futuristic game show." "And what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to play 3 characters, and I'll have my friend be Jonathan Ross or Parkinson interviewing me on a chat show. I'll come out as 3 characters, and I will bid to be the leader for the 21st century." This was back in 91, 92. And we'll have a clapometer and the audience will applaud. So the first character I come out of, I come out as, oh God, please don't judge. Well, judge me all you want. I came out as Adolf Hitler in a shell suit. And it, well, yeah. So basically, he'd moved on to basically to expose his bigotry. Well, he'd moved on from not hating one race of people, but we brought them back from history, obviously. But he hated the Welsh. So funny enough, he said, I hate your Dylan Thomas, I hate your Wiggly Roads, I hate your Tom Jones. It's not unusual. This kind of stuff, and it became. And the interviewer exposes his prejudices, and then he goes off. The second character came out as the Elephant Man. And I turned him into a Hollywood Lothario. I turned him into this gigolo that he was. In fact, he was a complete ladies' man, but he was a misogynist, absolute misogynist, the Elephant Man. And the third one was Jesus Christ. And he came out as an East End barrow boy. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that was where you say extreme characters. That's kind of where they started coming from. So then but one of the characters I created when I was I created a Russian spy walking on a giant chessboard. And it was all a monologue kind of thing. It was like a half-hour show. And then I went to Moscow. So I went to Moscow for 2.5 weeks on a student exchange, and it was 4 years after Perestroika. So they just had the revolution and the rest of it. Revolution, yeah, it was revolution. But it's still secret police there, and McDonald's had just arrived, Pizza Hut had just arrived, and it was the most depressing 2 weeks of my life. I've been lucky. I've traveled all over the world as a kid as well, and we did 2 weeks there on a drama exchange. And I got up with my friends, said, "Oh, I'm going to do this." You know that Russian character? They said, "Yeah." So there were 3 of us, and one played the guitar, the other one became the translator, and I performed in mock Russian, singing Ziggy Stardust. In pretending in Russian, but to Russian students whose English was so good that they could understand. So Spiders became Spidari, Marzo, and it became this whole Ziggy. He played guitar, this kind of stuff. They loved it because Russians have got such a great sense of humor in this awful, depressing period of time that it was for them, and that's kind of where I went, oh my God, it works and it translates, and that's where the characters came in. So then when I came to do magic, I suddenly realized I was at the Cardiff Magical Society, and I suddenly realized that, hang on a minute, everyone's doing the same thing. You're just wearing a suit doing the same tricks. How does anybody get any jobs here? Because they're just booking a man in a suit with a pack of cards. What's going on here? I thought, has anyone done any characters or stuff like that? I remember seeing Saturday Night Live and the Amazing Jonathan. I think, well, that's a character and blah, blah. I said, I'm going to be a Russian. I'll just be a Russian. I'll take that one I did at college and I'll make him into Russian. I'll make him name Kockov, right? Kockov, great. I'll give him a whole backstory. I'll come out. I used to do tossed out deck where you couldn't do this now. I've done this publicly. It's unbelievable. I used to do tossed out deck where I'd come up to someone and I'd pretended he was thick. He didn't understand what I wanted. And I'd slap them in the face as hard as I could. I literally would slap him in the face as hard as I could. I said, "You want me to slap you again, or do you understand?" And they're like, "I understand." A massive roar of laughter. I don't do that anymore, funnily enough. And I did it at a gig years ago, and I didn't realize it was a big theatre. I went out there and I did it, slapped him in the face, and it was the head of Equity, and he was the guest of honor. It was the 75th anniversary for Equity in Port Talbot in the Princess Wales Theatre. I went down and there was the mayor and the mayoress all went their jewelry, and I said, "Oh, good to see I see the oh my God, I see the gangsters in. He's brought his bitch with him." I mean, literally was like that. And then I slapped the head of the rest of it. Oh my God. But most of the audience were like in their pensioners in their 70s, and Kockov got up and I used to do a whole thing where I had to work out the color of women's underwear and stuff. I've moved on from that because time moves on and things change. I mean, there was an awful lot of laughter, and it was very. I mean, we got a lot of laugh. Problem is, I'll keep going till people stop laughing, and I think that's essentially it. If everyone's wrong with laughter, then I'm going, it seems to be working okay. If there's horrified silence, then I'll go, I'll have to rethink that bit. So I did stop doing the slapping in the face. But anyway, sorry to cut a long story. So characters came from university, having done them, and looking at everyone else and thinking, how am I going to different when I do this? So I did a competition, came out as Kockov, and then the argument started. I couldn't win because I played music during my close-up set, but then I performed my close-up set like a cabaret, and they're like going, "Oh no, close-up sets don't have music because that makes it cabaret." I said, yeah, but we're performing to everybody, you know. Anyway, that was back in the day, and who cares? It doesn't, you know. Competitions are really so meaningless and arbitrary. They mean nothing really. But it was well, to a certain degree. Obviously, some do, but for me, they meant nothing, and it kind of taught me a lesson, which is literally any rule there is, just ignore it and break it and do whatever you want. I was told years ago when I first started, which was that someone said, "Oh, you can't be a close-up magician and a children's entertainer." I said, "Why can't you?" No, it never happens. Because, and these were someone I thought was respected, no, because your adult's magic will end up looking like a children's entertainer's magic. And I was like going, is that always the rule? Is that always what happens? Yes. So I thought, well, that's rubbish, because I know I can entertain kids. So as a successful children's entertainer, who then went on to do adults magic anyway. And I thought, yeah, I'm a character, I'm big, but there's no real difference, because you turn up at a wedding, you've got to entertain the children. If you can't entertain the children, now you're a children's entertainer. In fact, you're just a family entertainer. In fact, the bottom line is you're an entertainer. If you can entertain, you should be able to entertain everybody. What is this above 18? Sorry, I don't do below 18. No, I don't only do adults. What is that? What is that? What is this utter cock that people talk? And there's so much about it. Anyway, you see, I've only had one coffee this morning. I keep talking. Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyway.
No, man, this is amazing. So how, you know, you talk about some of the stuff that you've done with Kockov, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
How have you had to adapt that character over the years? Because obviously you have said there's certain stuff you don't do anymore. But also at the same time, you are very edgy. So how do you find that line between making sure that you're not being too over the top for a venue, while at the same time still having the edginess?
Well, yeah. So that's it's actually much more straightforward than you think. I work for years in the radio industry, where the red light comes on and you don't swear. I developed an internal filter, which is actually pretty good. I don't say it's perfect, but it's pretty good. So therefore, as much as it's, I can edit myself as I go along. So people think that, so the way that I create my act, or the way that I do my act, is I do what's called rehearsed ad libs. So if you imagine you're doing an effect, you've done a routine, you've done it dozens and dozens of times. Let's say you brought someone up and you're doing a bank night routine, and they're coming up on stage. Then I very much see it's like a hand, it's like a delta of a river. Okay, there are only so many things this person can say in any given situation. There are only so many responses. The only time you have a response you've never heard before is if they're a sociopath. Or you know, and that is it. And then you do, I have had those where it's so left field that you just go, what? But so what happens is they can either say, oh, you know, and a classic example would be, oh, can you make my wife disappear? Great. Well, you have a response for that. The second one, or you get them up. So let's say the bank night's a good example. So okay, which number do you want? Do you want 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? So I'll number 5 because I've something or other, and you go, there's always an answer for that. Or do you want to swap? People always want to swap because such and such. They'll give a response for that. The idea being that there are only so many responses that people will give in a given situation if you set it up in the same way every way. You'll find that there are only so many hilarious comebacks or quips or body reactions or movements or asides or reactions or facial reactions or physicality or what they're wearing or what they're doing or the way there are only so many ways to do that, and all you have to do is have an instant answer for all 10 or whatever it is. It could be 20. So I do have an answer for every situation. So whatever happens, so then it looks like, oh, you just thought of that. Well, no, the reality is, so I always have a gag. I always have a gag for every single name that I ever hear, any name, and I always play everything's off on a name. I used to do it as a kid's entertainer, where I'd learn, my record was I learned 120 children's names in half an hour and remember them all from the beginning, but I'd also remember 4 facts that connected each of them and how I got to remember their name, which actually sounds hard. It is. I released a thing called, it was the MAP system, Memorize Any Person, and I wrote it down, I market it and whatever. And it's non-sequential recognition. So remembering people's names, I do it with adults as well. And I've done it before as Kockov. I did it some years ago. I did a cricket event and there were 60 people there. I did Walkabout Magic and I learned everybody's name, all 60 people's name in the 20 minutes that I had to do the magic. Well, actually, it was about half an hour, to be fair. I then came up, I stood everyone up around their tables, and I went around and told them everybody's names, and they'd sit down as I said everybody's names, and then they'd all sit down and get a round of applause. Then when I'd come up to the tables, I then had already in my mind worked out where they were. So when there were people missing from the table that Lou, I could tell them in the sequence who was missing. So where's Dave, where's Shirley? And I'd get another applause from that. And all that is, because I don't have that kind of a brain, well, I created it. All that is practice. It was years and years of doing it with children, and children are much easier to learn their names because they wear colorful clothing. When you get to an adults wear really boring stuff. Mostly men are wearing suits and that's it. So you have to go on facial expressions, idiosyncrasies. Oh, you got a sagging eye, you must be Saggy Simon, whatever it is. Or, you've got no hair, you've got whatever it is, bald Bob, whatever it is, but you can make it funny and link it. And it's not always offensive. You edit that in your head and give them something else. But children are much easier because they're wearing colorful clothes. They have a lot of writing on their clothes, shoes, hair, bobbles, braids, what else? Behavior, voice, name. So you can link stuff together. So yeah, that's straightforward. Learning names I found was easy as well for learning stuff and for control. Oh, that's the other thing I always about control, flexibility, and change. The three things I always do in my lecture. Controlling the audience, that's children and adults. Flexibility, whatever happens, you should be able to move with it. And the changes, you should be able to keep changing what you're doing. It's different from flexibility. Change it for any given scenario situation. And that's the idea of the words and knowing every scenario what they're going to do and what they're going to say and having a comeback. So it looks like you just made it up. So someone the other day, I said, what's your name? Claire. I said, oh, Claire, as in chocolate. As in chocolate is Claire. You're slightly creamy in the middle, but you have too much, you get a bit sick of it, yeah? And it was that kind of, or what's your name? Or a child would say, what's your name? Ellis. Ellis. Oh, like, so you're surrounded by water, like Ellis Island in New York. It was the place where all the immigrants came and blah, blah, blah. So you'd remember that for a child. Or what your name is, and Andy, obviously it's Randy Andy, or like Prince Andrew, I bet you don't sweat in a Pizza Hut or whatever it is. And you'd quickly make up gags. But then, so the other night I did a show, my 90-minute show here, Bamboozle in the theatre, and I had 16 different nicknames within the first 20 minutes. They roared with laughter, and all you do, it's an easy thing if people want to do it. If someone, you will know when someone doesn't say their name. If they say, and they think they're going to give a funny name and said, what's your name? And someone goes, yeah, Bob, right, that, and everyone kind of goes, and you know for a fact his name isn't Bob, all right? So then all you do is you just keep calling him Bob. Oh, okay, Bob. So then go right, rest of it. So then he rues the day that he pretended his name is Bob. I said, I know that's not your name, but we're going to go with it. If you were going to choose a different name, I'd have chosen something more exotic like Francisco. But then again, you're not really very exotic, are you, Bob? So anyway, so Bob, come up here, Bob, Bobbity Bob, Bob, and literally running gags. So everyone had different names and they were laughing with it. And people tell me afterwards, years later, after doing an event, they still have their nicknames in work from what I've given them years later, multiple times, because it's stuck. There was a guy the other day, and I'm really good at lookalikes. So there's a guy the other day who looked like, and I forget the name of the guy now. He's in the corner. He looked like a slightly fuller figured version of what's he called? The guy who wrote Love Actually and Four Weddings and a Funeral. That writer and director.
I know who you mean, yeah.
Yeah, him. He was the spit of him, but none of his work colleagues had ever noticed it before. And I just said, I loved Love Actually. And what you did with that script of Four Weddings was amazing. And slowly the pennies were dropping and people got their phones up and they were like going, oh my God, he does, doesn't he? Doesn't he look like it? Oh my God. Yeah. So then they now call him that. I'll remember his name in a minute. So yeah, Comic Relief. What's he called? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that. So you see, once you start me, I don't stop. Sorry. I just talk a lot.
Great. It's just gold.
Sorry.
I want to ask you one more question about the about characterization.
Yeah.
Which is I've had people on this channel lots and lots of times that leave comments and questions. And one thing they say is, oh, I don't need to worry about characters or developing a character because I'm just a close-up magician. I don't perform on stage. Do you think that it's important to, I mean, creating Kockov is one of the things that made you stand out. Yeah. Do you think it's important if somebody is just a close-up magician that they...
Yeah, well, because so the first thing to say is they are actually already a character. Because the moment that anyone starts to perform, they are no longer themselves. So their voice, even on now, their voice will go up half a semitone, and they are already performing. They're already a character. They're not really them true selves. they can't be. It's not possible unless you're a naturalistic actor. It's not going to happen, because you're now announcing and performing. Anytime anybody stands up in front of anybody to do anything, you are really a character. You are certainly you're an exaggerated. Your volume is turned up, the contrast has gone up, and you are an exaggerated version of yourself. You'll have certain patter. You'll have a script. You're an actor. As we say, this is a famous thing. We are just, magicians are just actors being magicians, So to say that someone, I don't need it, I'm just myself and the rest, it's not true. They are actually already a character. And what they need to do is they will find as time goes on that they will have to develop certain character traits. They will have to, if they are going to survive, and sometimes it is an element of survival. I always say that being a magician is a very lonely thing. Being a close-up magician to start with, in fact, even being a magician full stop, is because we get a phone call from someone we've never heard of to go into an event in a place we've probably never been to. And we have to turn up to people that we do not know in an event that we don't fully understand what it is or the feeling is. And then we perform to multiple tables, multiple little shows, cold to all these people. And at the end, we may be lucky enough to do a cabaret if you've got upsold a cabaret or something, or we may just go home, or we go to a wedding, and you're just one tiny cog in a big day of entertainment. And that's the big difference between close-up magicians and children's entertainers. Children's entertainers, who I, having been one and a family entertainer now as such, can be, and the disrespect that close-up magicians give to children's entertainers is breathtaking. Because if they ever had the balls, the stomach, the skill to stand in front of the most discerning crowd they're ever going to do. If a child doesn't like what you're doing, they stand up and walk away. Yeah. If you've got to hold a room full of 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 kids, I've done 120 quid for 2 hours on my own before, with about 4 adults in the room, at a difficult time, in a difficult place, in some of the places I worked in, some of the working men's clubs in the valleys in South Wales those years ago. That's the baptism by fire. So therefore, when you come to do those, and then you suddenly go, I'm doing a stand-up comedy club, 440 people, I'm the headline act in a big comedy club in Cardiff on New Year's Eve some years ago. I'm not going to be fazed. Why am I going to be fazed by some drunk woman from the valleys? I've had 80 kids for 2 hours. There's nothing you can say that I've not had to deal with. I'm wearing my wig, I've got my armor on, and that's another thing about having a character, whether there's a wig or whether there's a costume. The rest of it, as soon as you put your suit on, put your shoes on. I always rehearse in my shoes, always put my shoes on for rehearsing something at least, and then the character and the costume as well. That's a really vital. If you're ever practicing magic, you should be wearing the suit you're going to perform in, so you feel you put it on and you become that character. Even if you don't think you are a character, you've got to put it on. Put the tie on, if you're wearing a tie, put the shirt on, put the shoes on. The shoes are massively important to me. Roll up your sleeves or whatever you do, have it already, have everything in the ready and do it. Don't just rehearse the tricks in isolation. You've got to get into the costume, because then when you arrive there, you go, I know where it is, I know what I'm doing. Also, I'm ready, I'm in character, I'm feeling, I'm about to walk on stage and do it. Even if it's walking up to a table, you're walking up to a stage. So yeah, so absolutely. So what was the question? I'm really bad at that. Even you're going, I don't know, it's just too much information. Sorry, it's just like
no, it's
chapter 3. I will just keep going.
And this is genuinely one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. It's just mental. So being kids, disrespect kids entertainers and becoming a close-up magician. So I don't even remember what the question was, but I'm sure I covered it somewhere. Did I? I reckon you covered it. Covered it. Yeah. Sorry, it was about close-up magicians being characters. Yeah.
So that is, you are a character already, and then you just have to start concentrating on the things that work for you. And again, I think that's the point I was making, was the battle. It's not that it should always be a battle, because sometimes, and everyone knows mirroring techniques, you come out there and you will, and originally you asked me a question, how do I adapt Kockov to audiences, in terms of how has it changed, and making sure that I'm clean enough in certain things. Well, I've also done holiday parks as well. So I've done Kockov for holiday parks. So I did a whole season of them across the southeast and some of those kind of big parks. And you'd walk out to a 1,200 seat room and there'd be 80 people because they book in the off season. And I'm fully surrounded on a stage doing 45 minutes clean. So I've done weddings, I've done christenings, I've done Kockov as clean can be, as clean as I can make it. And it's all double entendre. I always say, which is a really good rule, probably not now as much, but in the years of Chris Moyle on Radio 1, and Chris Evans as well, that you would never hear me ever saying anything in a family environment that you wouldn't hear at 8:15 on Radio 1. You'd never hear me say anything or allude to anything you wouldn't hear at 8:15 on Radio 1. And if that's on in your car with your kids going to school, and they've said stuff far worse than I'd ever say to a family audience and the rest of it, far worse, innuendo and the rest of it. But then again, watch The Simpsons. It's all double entendre. If you start analyzing other media and other stuff that's out there, and what suddenly becomes what is out there has become the norm over the years, not that ever should really dictate the rest of it, then we're most performers are pretty squeaky clean, most of them, I'm saying. And I think even for me, I'm going, suddenly everyone gets a bit puritanical when you suddenly going, oh, you said that and did the rest of it. I'm going, have you stood at the bus stop for more than 20 minutes with your kids? Have you been on a train? Have you been on the rest of it? Not that I want to perpetuate that at all, but the language or the way that people behave and the rest of it. So I'm in a controlled environment. You pay for me to be that way, and you know who I am and what I do. And if it's a club, if it's a stand-up club, and it's over 18s only, everything I do is over 18s only, and it's the rest of it. And but the other thing, of course, is tester lines. I can come to a table, and you were asking before about how do you do it. If I come to a table and I have several tester lines, and if they don't pick up on any double entendres, then I know, okay, I'll reel it in and I won't go there. But if I say something slightly smutty or slightly dodgy is the wrong word, no, because it's not, slightly naughty, let's say, if they pick up on it, then great. And then you can gauge the level to which they'll accept something. If I come to the table, and I've done it at military gigs, for the first time I ever did a military gig, oh my God, I had no idea that people were that rude, spoke with those words around those people in this very posh environment. I mean, the first table I got to, and there were two women in their 50s, and both of them said the C word. And it was like, okay. And wow. And one of them I was dressed as Kockov. One of them actually just grabbed my junk. And it was back. Yeah, this is probably before, hashtag me too. But yeah, oh no, the stuff that happens that people think I'm dressed like that, therefore it's a free ride to do anything on a stage. Otherwise, less so nowadays. I think that's more the way not that I ever put it out there. I don't go out there and say I'm the stripper and please touch me. But no, I've had countless things. But then again, I've come from moved from a point of view where I used to slap someone, or slap women's backsides as well, which was one of the things which I used to do for a version of Knickerbocker by James Biss. I call it fantastic. Very funny, great, and people request it at their cabarets when I do private function. Oh, can you do that one, the rest of it? Well, I phased that out some years ago, and I did it one more time about 5 or 6 years ago. I brought it back because someone said, oh, will you do it? And I said, oh, okay. And as I'm about to do it, and the rest of it, I'm thinking, actually, no, this is gone. This isn't working. This isn't right. We've actually moved on from this. I did it, and I pulled myself back a bit from it as well. So you asked about how I adapt things. You do have to adapt. I have adapted. There are certain things I won't make reference to now. I was on Britain's Got Talent, the first ever series, and never got aired. I was Uncle Ala Kitty's pal doing an escapology. I did the Falkenstein and Willard Gypsy rope mystery thing, and it was awful. It was most of an awful experience, and they hated magicians in series 1 up to about series 4, and then they suddenly realized, actually, we've got no acts because no one wants to come on here. And then they suddenly realized they wanted it, so they changed it all around. They used to have people in the audience holding up in the aisle saying stand, and they used to stand, and they used to have a person that we want everyone shouting, booing and stamping feet, shouting off as soon as anyone comes on. I walk on, booing, 1,000 people stamping and booing and shouting off. That was the first 3 or 4 series, because it was all. And then they did cutaways, and they re-edited, they refilmed the judges' responses, because I got a couple of good lines in, so they redid the judges' responses to camera and edited those in as well. So it wasn't live. But it has all changed, and Russ is there now, and there is a totally different feel to it. Thank God they saved what otherwise they realized they didn't have any performance. No, so adapting things as you go along with language and with sensibilities and what else is out there. So I always have a caveat in when I do I'm the only person in the world licensed to perform real live Russian roulette with 4 revolvers. There's some semantics within that, of course, because my act is called Real Live Russian Roulette. I'm the only person who licenses it because it's me. So Real Live Russian Roulette, I get around like that. But if there's been a shooting in America, I always have the caveat which says the corporate thing, which is I have the right to change the act. because I can't go out and suddenly do, if there's been a shooting, I can't come out and do that. I do my plunge of death, it's a smash and stab kind of style routine instead, or something else. So you've got to adapt for what's going on in the news, and you've got to adapt to the way that society has changed. And there are certain things I wouldn't say now as well, especially that I've got a 20-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son, they're twins. They educate me in terms of language, what I can and can't say. I then will pull people up. I'm really quite keen on this. If I'm working with someone, performing to somebody, and they'll say something in an audience situation, then I literally will stop and I'll say, I'm afraid you can't say that anymore. Let me tell you why. And then they go, I didn't realize that. And let's move on, because it's an element of education as well. So there's certain words that I didn't know I couldn't use, and now I realize I can. And it's really, I found it really important. And I do that in the theatre as well. I'll stop and say, you can't say that. I literally will stop the show and say, you can't say that. Please don't use that terminology, because, and I'll break character and come off and I'll explain it, and then we carry on. So there's an element of, so I do things a little bit differently as well. I don't always, but there are certain things that I won't accept if it's my building or my gig. And because I think if I expected of me, then I'd expect my audience to understand where I'm coming from, my sensibilities. But no, there've been some iffy bits where I've done stuff in the past that now I would never do, and I'm going, why did I do it? Well, I think, could I be cancelled? I don't know, maybe one or two bits. But then I look around and I go, do you know what? I didn't even touch the sides. I didn't even go to places. People think I'm a lot ruder than I am. My kids, when the first time they saw me, I built up this thing, and they said, I thought you'd be a lot ruder. I literally thought you'd be a lot ruder. And I'm going, no, that's as, and if you analyze the stuff that I say, a lot of it is implied with Kockov. Sometimes if I'm doing a club, a stand-up comedy club, oh my God, I'm as rude could be. But that's a comedy club, different environment, and you change it. So I hope that gives you some insight into the way that I work and think of stuff.
Here's a question. Do you exclusive, like we talked at the Midnight Show, you had Uncle El, the Kid is Pale, you had the Balloon Twister character. Do you still use other characters in your work, or do you now pretty much exclusively work with Kockov? Or do you ever go out with Jasper Blakeley?
Yeah, absolutely. So I pretty much predominantly nowadays work as myself, as Jasper Blakeley, because I've got the theatre and I've got 2 shows a week. And what I find though is I've got, actually it worked out, I've created 67 characters over the years. So I've got costumes, backstories, prosthetic teeth. I work as a stooge actor as well. So I'll create a character where I'll come into a corporation or corporate environment and pretend to be somebody real. And then I will just mess with them. So I've done it for, I created an American motivational speaker called Brad Stooges from Las Vegas. So I'd put on an all over fake tan. I got a £600 set of white acrylic teeth, and I'd come and do a sales pitch to these sales guys. I've done hypnosis conferences when I've gone out as him as well. In fact, I've self-hypnotized myself to believe that I am the character I'm pretending to be, and then gone out and done a hypnosis conference and performed as that character, making myself believe that I am the character. So I watched the video back, and it's frightening, literally frightening, because I don't know if you're into hypnosis or the rest of it. Anthony Jack, a friend of mine, and yeah, so that's another thing I explored. I think it was the first time you think that a character had ever done stage hypnosis as a character and not use the word hypnosis. We think that was the first time it's ever been done. So I was pretending to be someone else, being a character. Anyway, so yeah, so most of the time I go out as me. But obviously what I do is I will create characters for corporate events. So if you've got a themed event, I will create a character for you bespoke with the rest of it. But I have another company called Sideshow Events, where I've got 8 different character double acts with a friend of mine called Frank E. Hashka. And we've marketed that for, oh my God, the things we haven't done. We have a Fanshawe's, which is the Fanshawe's Fantastical Emporium of the Impossible. It's a Victorian double act. It's 3 45-minute different street shows as Victorian magicians. We do a 1920s seaside entertainers called the Deck Chair Dandies. We've got another adapting one. We've got one which we do for air shows we've done, which is called Tailwind Recruitment, and we are two flight officers, and we do everything with ping pong bats and the rest of it. That's a walkabout act. We've got another one which is called oh God, what's the other one we do? A really big one. What do we do all the time? Oh my God, I'm forgetting now. My brain just switches off. Oh yeah, we do the Postal Express, which is a miniature miniature little box, almost like a booth, if you like, wooden booth like that, where I'm inside it. And we are Santa's official gift check service. So people come up with clipboards and we say, going to make sure you've been good or bad. And we take the names down, the details, and they come to the booth, they sit down, and I ring up the North Pole live. And I use electronics underneath. So I play the other end of a phone call with the elves, and I can time it to their responses so they can hear stuff going on like that. And secretly, whatever's I read it and say yeah, and I look in the book, the big book, but obviously using some devices. Frank's over the other side of a shopping center or whatever, taking down what it is, but I know what he's written down. So then I say, look in the book. I say, oh yeah, it says here, yeah, you wanted a red, you wanted Barbie doll with the new caravan. She's like, yeah, no, it's in the book because we got your letter. And they're like going, oh my God. But I'll also find out the name of their dog and stuff like that. So they'll suddenly go, yeah, you got it. I said you got it. Oh, we're gonna have to watch out for your dog. It's Binky, isn't it? Binky. And they go, oh my God, they know the name of the dog. But the great clever thing is that Frank will have an adult there, but one of the parents will walk away and he'll call one back, say, what's the name of the dog? You've got a pet. Great, he'll send it to me. So then when the other adult comes there, it has the name of the dog. And one of the adults goes, how do they know the name of the dog? I said, oh, we know everything. We know everything. And it's quite a clever way. And then on the elves, and then they get a magic bell, they ring the bell. And it's just a nice little walkabout kind of, a thing in shopping centers or whatever, Christmas kind of stuff like that. So yeah, and I've got loads of other acts as well and loads of other stuff I've created. But anyway, that basically gives you an idea of just constantly thinking up new stuff, new shows the whole time. And here we do 90-minute shows here. So I do 2 90-minute shows a year here. So I've probably done about 6 hours of content, or actual cabaret material, 6 hours probably in the last, since 2018. It's new stuff.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the theatre. How did that come about? Because obviously, you know, you're a busy corporate entertainer, you're not shy of work, you've got more than enough work, and then you decide to open a theatre. How did that all come about?
So yeah, we're sitting in it now. I'm in Barry in South Wales. So if people know Barry Island, literally there for Gavin and Stacey. And I moved here obviously in 2000, been here 21 years. So my wife used to own, this is a Victorian one up, one down shop as it was. It's been here originally back in Victorian times. It was a barber's owned by a one-armed barber who lost his arm building the docks. I think he was a shit barber, I'm going to be honest. I mean, he must have been with one arm. I don't think he was very good with rusty scissors back in the day in Victorian times. I think even the thought of a Victorian barber one-armed was even more scary. Do you know, like, how did he hold them? Because they would do teeth as well at the time, weren't they? They were the dentists as well. Anyway, so yeah, so this has been lots of things, and it was a shop. She now owns up on a high street about 400 feet away. And I only live literally a quarter of a mile away, which is brilliant. We can both walk to work if we want to, which is, I can tell anybody, if you ever get a business and you can get it near your house, do it. Because literally, I've turned up here, oh God, I picked up the wrong keys. Well, great. I just go back and get the right keys or something like that. So yeah, so what it came about. So this was a one up, one down Victorian shop. And my wife owns Homemade Wales around the corner, which does homewares and gifts. And it used to be here. Anyway, not much footfall on this little road off the main high street here in Barry. And I said, okay. So I was with her. I said, oh, well, we can't get rid of it because it's a lovely little space. What could we do with it? And I said, oh, so I was speaking to a friend of mine, Brian, and another friend, Frank, 3 of us. Well, we could turn this into a rehearsal space. Okay, and the rest of it. And then very quickly, Frank said, well, why don't we turn it into the Fanshawe's and Fantastical Emporium of the Impossible? And it'd be like a Victorian kind of place and curiosity place, and put shows on once a month, pay the rent. Otherwise, we can just practice magic here and we do stage stuff and all, you know, and we all share the rent and blah, blah, blah. And then very quickly said, well, actually, we've got to stage it. We can do a show once a month. And then very quickly, then Frank went out of the picture. And then between me and Brian, we decided, well, actually, why don't we turn it into a theatre? I went, okay. So it's the first time in UK planning history that a shop has been turned into a D2 commercial theatre. And I won't bore you with it. It took many months of planning and the rest of it. We were granted it, and we got a license on it as well. So it's a licensed bar upstairs and a theatre downstairs, 25-seat theatre down here with movable staging. It's also the UK's smallest theatre, UK's smallest cinema. There's a 92-inch screen behind some curtains, a 4K projector, Dolby Atmos and DTS:X sound, show classic films as well. We do live jazz here once a month. We do stand-up comedy as well, and we do my magic show twice a week. Originally, I bought Brian out a month before COVID, by the way. He wanted to go and do something else, and we were kind of doing that anyway, as partnerships can end up being like that. But no, without that, you know, we really made it together. Since then, and COVID hitting, I was lucky enough, I was shut for 550 days. But fortunately, because in Wales and in fact in the UK wide, but we got some arts grants. I got an arts grant, which is great, which meant I survived, we could stay open, and reinvested a lot of that money. I put in some medical grade air conditioning in here. I redid the flooring and the staging, and repainted, redecorated, and did other stuff like that. I spent a lot of money on all of the Zoom stuff. So I did a big Zoom thing here in the theater, which was oh my God, it was for a multi-billion-dollar software company in America. I had to do a show for 80 people in 3 time zones in the eastern seaboard in America, London, and in India. And they wanted a 2.5 hour award ceremony where they'd give out awards. So I had an operator here, Frank, in the room here. I had 3 huge monitors here. I had 6 PCs. I had a laptop and a thing and a phone and an earpiece, and we had 2 operators in America, and we had 4 rehearsals because they wanted to jump all on Zoom, by the way, which is the world's worst platform for. It was created to do this, like meetings one-to-one. It wasn't created to be a television studio, and I think that's where a lot of people fall over. The fact it's you can only do certain things. So I had a 2.5 second delay in my ear all the time because of the way it works. And I had 2 operators in America, and they wanted to insist on having split screens where people would jump in to present awards. And then I did interactive. Using everyone had mobile phones all around the world, all these 80 people doing an interactive quiz on their phones, and the awards, and I did gambling, and I did the show, but we had 3 multi-cameras in HD as well, and a portable camera. Oh my God, it was like crazy. It's the most money I've ever charged for anything given, but my God, I earned it tenfold, because it's not if something goes wrong, it's just when it goes wrong. Because technology, you're just waiting for it. What do we do if we go so out of sync with my voice? I'm going, hey, you, what? Hey, hi. If you did that and went completely out of sync, what's going to happen? So anyway, how did I get to be here? So yeah, that's what it was. It was a shot. Should we, do you want to have a look at the theatre? Do you want to have a look?
Yeah, I'd love to. That would be amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's have a look at the theatre. I'm sitting here now. Behind me is a wall like that. In fact, you don't want to look at my face. I'm going to turn the camera on so you can see. We should be able to see now. So this is where I've just been sitting, talking to Craig there, and that's the door. That's the stage area. In fact, why don't we just do this very quickly, and you can see the context of where I'm coming in from. So I'll just do that. See, this is what I put up with. I put up with the bins all the time. So all the time over here. So this is the road that Island Road is on, and then if you go down there and turn right, you'll go to Barry Island. But this is the theatre here. As it's the one up, one down Victorian. There's a thing. I haven't put the shutters up. A small space. And look, 5-star hygiene rating. Thank you. I wash my hands and everything. Bamboozle, that's the show I've been doing. Oh, look, lovely things from TripAdvisor. Stand-up comedy and Christmas parties. And this is the door that you come into. So as you come in, you're straight into the theatre itself. And there's the aircon I was just talking about, with some lights up there as well. And my Christmas twinkly lights. And so this is where I get up to 25 people. There's not 25 chairs there, but we can get them sitting down here as well. And if I go up here, all this staging moves. All of this staging moves and can be replaced into 3 levels there. And they face, there's nothing behind there, by the way. They face behind here, which is a 92-inch screen. And there's a 4K projector normally up there with an amp, and there's 7.1 surround sound with Dolby Atmos and DTS:X sound. And then that is the space you perform in. So when people say it's small, it is. This is the size, the smaller than a UK size living room. You're looking at about, what are we, 18 feet by 12. And I think that goes down to about 9 feet across there. But, you know, there is the stage area there. So as a performer, you'll be here, I'll be behind it here, and addressing everybody here. So there's nowhere to hide. There are no wings or anything like that. But let's just go upstairs. I'll show you the bar. Behind here is where all the equipment is for mics and stuff. When I'm using a mic, I'm playing music as well. I use an amazing thing as well, which is Craig Filicetti does it as well, which is called the what's it called? The star. What's it called? What was it called? Something. Anyway, it's this. It's a dongle which plugs into any system in the world and can operate all sound through a one of these remotes as well. You'll have to do a review on one of these. They're incredible. About 550 quid, but my God, it's amazing the music you can play and cue it and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, going with the stairs, and it'll give you an idea. There's a bit of a plant there, and this is where the bar is.
and there's some seating there with some sort of comfy cushions. I collect and sell classic movie posters as well. And there's the bar. So there's the bar. There's the pictures and stuff. All redone on the floor. And we're quite proud of this as well. We've managed to, in this space, fit so many things in. I mean, it is tiny. Oh, there's a TV up there to stream anything when we're downstairs if we wanted to. But for instance, behind here, there's a fridge freezer behind there. I'm up here. All of this is, well, I'll show you. This is where all the drink is. So we've got literally thousands of pounds worth of spirits and drinks in there. Although I didn't tell you that. There's the aircon up there. My friend Frank cleverly built in a monitor in there which shows adverts that are scrolling through of events and stuff. We have another wine fridge there. We've got another wine fridge there. This is the cloakroom where all the coats hang. We've got a fridge freezer at the back of there as well, and more storage up there. And here are our glasses. I keep putting more shelves up to store them in. We have a huge array of all gins, all our wines, and all our huge amounts of whiskies as well. A double beer fridge under there, which now means that I get to have a dishwasher, which is a lifesaver. A couple of bins, and then this is the rest. There's the loo. Very just compact, does everything you need to do. And the legal capacity of this building is unbelievably 60, but we only limit it to 35. So that's the theatre. And here's the bar that we sometimes perform at here. I do late night bar magic as well, or in fact, everyone will be sitting around. I'll stand up after we finish and I'll put my apron on. We'll have nice branded aprons, and I'll stand up and I'll do 20 minutes of bar magic. It means people stay on later and get another drink before I shut. I do cocktails as well now. And then that table there opens up, and I do private parties all the time. So that's up to 25 people. I do an artisan buffet, make the buffets during the day, in the afternoon, and put them out. And we have love cold meats and cheeses and the rest of this. And we play really cool kind of 60s music, 70s music, and sort of really kind of a lot of Northern soul and stuff like that. I had a mirror made, so you could be the small space. You could have your hat, wearing your top hat, or your Vegas showgirl kind of feathers as well, and some other original artwork. So yeah, that's the whole theatre, and it's not big, but we're 2019, 2020 before COVID. We were rated the #1 nightlife venue in the whole of Wales on TripAdvisor, in the top 10% in the world. So we've been really lucky. We've had 14 world-class magicians here, from people like John Archer, Etienne Pradier, obviously Luca Volpe, oh my God, Fritz Altamade, me, Kockov. So that's pretty much the view. So I come down the stairs with some intro music played in, and then come down to the audience, and then go ahead and do 2 45-minute shows with close-up magic, and we have an interval and some stuff. And yeah, it's a whole entertainment and a whole evening. So I hope you enjoyed that little view of the theatre.
It's amazing.
All right.
That was such an incredible space. I can't believe how much you've made of the space that you've got. It's made me want to grab my family and come and visit you, Jasper.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I got to be honest. I always imagine that George, I contacted him twice. George Clark with Amazing Space. George Clark, Amazing Space. It's incredible. You managed to do with the space. It's like you've managed to fit in everything you could do with possibly. Yeah. So it is. I always say it's like being on a barge or being in a caravan. You make use of every space. So what you didn't see, the stuff that's hidden, is I've got place under the stairs for more stuff. Everything under the staging you saw that I stood on has got so much stuff in there. And I've got a little bit of place where the bin store is there, so I keep some stuff there. But you've got to make use of everything that you have. There's more. I will find more places as we go on. I'm trying to get I wanted to get some more craft beers in, but I need another fridge. But I've already have 1, 2, 3. I already have 5 fridges. So trying to get a 6th in. It's a tight. I cannot tell you how small. People come and go, oh my God, it is small. And I go, clues in the name. But it's but what I will say is, we're doing the live jazz and the stand-up, the amount, and performers as well, and magicians who've been here, how many of them just say and it sounds a bit cheesy, I know it's mine, but it is a magical place. It's got such a good vibe, and it has. And we can have, so a friend of mine's played with Jules Holland for the last 13 years. Louise Claire Marshall, she's a singer and right. She's one of his backup singers, and she performs as well. She's amazing. So I've known her all my life. So she's come and performed here with
a four-piece and singing. So we can have all of that with 20 people or 25 people watching, full on trumpet playing. Somehow the acoustics and the high ceilings and the curtains deadening the rest of it, you get it just really works. And it is a very, very magical place. And we're lucky to get some world-class jazz musicians to come here now, and we're getting more and more known for doing jazz and stand-up as well. Really good stand-ups coming regionally. And obviously magic, as I said, I'm hoping that once I can turn a financial corner, that I can get other magicians to come back and perform here as well, because that's been a thing for me, which was always 90. We've had lectures here before. We had people getting magicians to do 90-minute shows is really interesting. So, you know, Etienne Pradier had not really done 90 minutes. Luca Volpe, not really done 90 minutes. And, you know, you got some of the other people. Well, Mark James, of course, had, and he'd come and do his 90-minute show here, and it all kind of worked. And John Archer, that's no real stretch for him. But it is when you suddenly realize that this is where it is and where you're working, and you're going, there are no wings. Oh, right, this is the space. Yeah. It's just like a one-table gig. It's like someone's living room, and everybody doesn't know each other. By the end, everyone knows each other. So it's like a house party. Everything's like a house party, because it's just a really magical place that can be difficult at times with certain people if they drink a certain amount, and you've got certain types of people who are intent on getting slaughtered. But that's like any venue. You just have to roll with it and go with it. But you know, 99% of the time, lovely people. And the distances people travel is unbelievable. A lot of people come from West Wales. I mean, people will drive a couple of hours to come and see a show here, which you're thinking, really? I said, yeah, I've had people fly from France to see people perform here. I've had people come from Scotland, from Birmingham, from all down the south coast. People come from Kent. What they'll do is they'll arrange to meet their friends and stay overnight, knowing that they can come and see a show here. So that has been the kind of thing. Said, oh, come this weekend. We've got tickets for this. And then they'll come. So obviously, I'm not being the driving force and saying they're only coming from Kent to see me, but they will arrange things to make sure they can have a night out and it coincides with. So, and the other thing, good thing, TripAdvisor is good, or anything else like that. We'll have couples. Literally, I bought some tickets 2 hours before, they said, and they were just doing a Gavin and Stacey tour. They were from Oxfordshire, and they came here and they said, we're going to come back. We'll bring friends. And yeah, it really, really just it's because it's unique. It is unique. There are other theatres around, small theatres. I get it. Obviously, I've got my friend Mark Bennett with Smoke and Mirrors in Bristol, which and I'm completely happy to say, and he knows that I took massive inspiration from there. Why we started this place, from being there. Obviously, there's Rodney over in Salou, and obviously he's obviously much bigger now, but you got Matthew Wright, obviously in Torremolinos with the Chamber of Secrets. So, you know, there are other people and other things going on, but no, we want to make something unique and different and not just magic. So yeah, the comedy is really important and the jazz, but it's a really, really magical space. And I feel really privileged and lucky. And it's an upcoming place again, is Barry still, biggest town in Wales, 60,000 people. And I had a lot of support locally, huge amounts of support, and people will come. So it's a really great venue.
Great. I mean, I've performed on stage at Smoke. And compared to your theatre, it's massive. You know, it's huge.
Yeah, so it's half. So this is half the size of Smoke and Mirrors. Yeah, but you've not. But it's great.
So intimate. You can just tell it's so intimate. But
the great thing for a magician is that it allows you to do close up magic as a parlor. So literally, because it is that small, you can do all the stuff you do as close up, you can do as parlor magic. And that's quite an interesting thought, that when people say, you're saying, oh, how do magicians transition to doing parlor or stage? Well, you probably already got you probably already learned the magic you need to turn something, because anything really, pretty much, you know, even invisible deck, even a small pack of invisible deck can be done on stage. Of course it can, as long as you have someone up next to you, and if you don't have a video screen, can confirm. I mean, in here, I don't have to. I could do it with this. I use a jumbo, but I could use obviously a small pack, because they know I can't manipulate anything. You've got someone next to you. You don't need a video screen, and the one just pull it out. What is it? And they hold it up. You know what it's like. I mean, I always remember years ago in the thinking there's certain things that don't translate, and I think it was a lady from Korea or something. I can't remember, and she literally got up on Blackpool stage, and we're right at the top. And the video was, I mean, Bob was great with Hamilton with his video and the rest of it. But I think it was a woman who was doing a thimble routine with flesh-colored thimbles. And it's like going, it felt like that, because it's like, I'm going,
And then at one moment, I think one time we did it, we're 700 feet away, and she made an origami swan or something, and then even the front row was struggling, and I'm going, so not everything translates, but realistically, close-up magic can change into parlor. You pretty much know everything you need to do, and the transition isn't that difficult. Just start doing a large table at a wedding, and then, you know, I've done bigger tables than I've got a theatre here. You know what I mean? So if you want to do parlor, and it's a great upsell as well. The upselling again from doing a wedding to offering a cabaret, 20-minute, half-hour cabaret. I'll tell you my fees are quite straightforward. £300 for the hour, 400 for 90 minutes, 500 for 2 hours at any wedding. I don't know what it's different horses, of course, in different parts of the country. They're booking me. They're not booking the magician. Really vital. You're booking me. You're not booking the magician. You're booking Jasper, entertainer, who happens to be a magician. And then if you want the cabaret, and I'll do your 20 minutes / 30 minutes cabaret for an extra 250 quid. So 750 quid. If you want to do the drinks reception as well, that's an extra 100 quid. I did one the other day in a thing, which is exactly what I said, drinks reception round the tables for 2 hours. And I did a 20-minute cabaret, which ended up being 30, because if they're good, I'll carry on. If it's 20, I'll cut it short. If they're good, 30 minutes, 850 quid, done. And if you know, it's good money. It's good money, and you can make it work. And always look for the upsell if you're doing weddings and the rest of it. Had you thought about having a cabaret? I'll do it after the speeches, and that's that great transitional time between the speeches and before the night. The people arrive for the night time. What about really special? We'll get them to clear the room. Everyone puts all the chairs together. We'll face that one way. It's a standard thing. I'll bring my little PA. They'll be mic'd up. It'd be great. And here's another thing as well, which you'll know as well. If you work the close-up around the tables, oh my God, it's the best thing ever, because you already know who they are, who's going to be good at, they'll be good in the cabaret. You're a nightmare. You're never coming up. Also, I always do this. I talk about this in lectures as well. If you're doing a corporate event and you're going around the tables and you're going to do a cabaret later on, you get to every table and you say, look, I'll make a deal with you, okay? After the dinner, I've got a cabaret. Will you please do me the honor of please just turn your tables, turn your chairs, face me, and shut them up. Please just shut up, okay, and watch me, okay? Can we all make that decision, okay? Because if you don't, I will come and destroy you. I will pick on you, okay? So everyone just come watch, and we'll have a lot of fun. Is that a deal? Is that a deal? Good, okay. So then when I get up and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the cabaret now, okay? Remember the oaths that we all took. Do we all remember what we? Susie, Tina, put your drink down. Do you remember what you said? You promised you'd be good. And I know. You normally, you know, it's a working night. You normally should be down the docks. But the point is, Tina, you're going to be good. She's going to be good. I don't always do that line. It depends, you know. If she's a pensioner, probably not. But no, you know, hey, horses, courses. You know, there's room for everyone here. But the point is, you're doing that, and everyone's suddenly on board, and that you've made a deal, and you're going to do it. And that's the control thing, taking control, and the rest of it. So anyone thinking of doing, oh, could I go into parlor and the rest of it? You already have the magic, pretty much. You know, you probably have the tricks already. You probably learnt them already. It's just a bit bigger, controlling your audience. Make a deal with everyone on the table, so when you get them to do the cabaret, they're going to pay attention to you. That's so important, that you've made that rapport, that connection with everybody. Dave, give Dave a nudge. Shh. I know you've got a big gob. Just try. Literally 20 minutes, then you can carry on doing whatever you're doing. Whatever it is you can have to go and do, just carry on, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, you've got to make that kind of oath with, deal with them and get them on board. They've already met you. They already love you, hopefully. You've got that rapport going. So then build it to the cabaret. And once you build the cabaret, well, you've made an extra 250 quid, but it feels special. And you make sure that the client knows this is a big deal. You know, someone said, if you just book me to be the cabaret, I charge 750 quid for 45 minutes. I'm doing for 250 quid for 20 minutes, half an hour. You don't have to be explicit about that. But sometimes that can be the subtext, and it can be the thing that's selling it. Just always be upselling, because that's how you can make a £500 wedding into an £850 wedding. And make some, anyway, that it's worked for me in the past. Unless you want to try and do, it's easy to do one wedding for me in a day and upsell it rather than try and do two, £300-400 hours or hour and a half, because then you've got to drive and blah, blah, blah. And the rapport thing, you've built up this rapport. You got to let's capitalize on it. They already love you from being around the tables. Oh my God, he's going to do a cabaret and different stuff. Brilliant. And then I sell the theatre. Then I give out the ticket. Then I give out the cast of the theatre. I get to the end of the cabaret. I did it the other day. I stood up and did a whole 90-second advert for the theatre. Sorry about this. I've been shut for 550 days because of COVID. this is what I've got, this, and you see them all going, the rest of it. And I've put cards on every table, as long as you're allowed to, with a QR code, they scan, see what's on. If you love jazz, love stand-up, come and see a magic show and the rest of it. I did a gig the other day. I hadn't sold enough tickets for this coming Saturday. A client I'd worked with before, and Boris was announcing, we're shutting down, all this kind of crap going on, masks and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and said, she'd bought 15 tickets, 15 £20 tickets for my show. Well, great, the show's sold out, great. Because I'd done the pitch at a private party for her 6 weeks ago. So yeah, anyway, always be selling. You got to keep going.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, outside of you as a performer and as with the theatre, there's one more aspect that I want to speak to you about.
Yeah.
You obviously have released DVDs. You alluded to releasing DVDs years ago with Alakazam.
Yeah.
You've obviously continued to release products. You've just released something new now. You lecture. Where did that come about? Because you've always been very successful. You've never needed to worry about getting work. You got, what made you decide to lecture and release products, and what made you decide to go to Alakazam?
I mean, I think what happened was that I interested. So I was kind of, I didn't know, I came to the world of magic really quite late to it, and I didn't realize that there's this thing called products that you bought, the tricks they bought. I just suddenly thought they just appeared. I don't know how. And anyone outside it, until you come into magic, you think, well, isn't it just all there? Aren't they? No. These are manufactured. These are, what's a gimmick? Well, you suddenly, your whole world starts going, and when you start looking at it, you're going, really? That's how it's done? And I think, and I'll get back to that. I think that there's a really interesting point I like to make this as well, which is that you, why is it that magicians, all that magicians ever do, you get to a certain point in being a magician where you know how everything works. It's just a given. If not, then you could work out the way it's done. Very, very few times are you fooled at a certain level. I mean, there's so many, they're going, very few times. But what happens is magicians really want to be fooled, because they want to remember what it was, that moment when they weren't a magician, what it was to be the audience. They want to relive that. To give that adrenaline rush, to go, oh my God, that's why we get so excited when we don't know how something works. And maybe they want to know how it works. Sometimes I don't want to know, I want to work it out. I really desperately want to work it out. Don't tell me, I'm going to work it out, because you want your brain to work. But it's that moment you get something and you remember what it was to be before you're a magician. Remember what it was to be a kid, that sense of excitement, because we're creating moments, we're one of the last bastions of magic, where you're creating something that can't be explained, because there's no CGI, there's nobody helping me, there's no camera crew, there's no edits, there's nothing. You're sitting feet from me, or I'm doing something, you're going, and your brain is going, I don't understand. So we're one of the last bastions of that, and that's why people get fascinated, because it does remind them of childhood. It reminds them of Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, all that kind of stuff rolled into one, because it's a part of their brain they don't have to access. So by taking that, so as magicians, we always look to rekindle it in ourselves. And that's why we like going to conventions, looking at new magic tricks, because we look to be fooled. And that is what we look for. Is it going to fool me? And fool me is the wrong word, because I don't like the word fool. It's inspire us, give us that sense of awe and that entertainment. That isn't the question you asked, of course. The question you asked, of course, was what?
What made you decide to start creating?
Okay, creating stuff. Yeah, well, exactly those kind of things, which was that I saw everybody performing the same thing. Everyone was doing the same thing. So I'd already created the characters, and I thought, well, why do I want to go and, so the other thing is I'm massively tight when it comes to spending money. Well, I used to be on magic. I mean, and that's it. I'm going, but I want to, can I not go and make it myself? Can I not go and do that? And therefore I created Kockov as a character who's Eastern Bloc, 1980s Eastern Bloc, and things a bit grubby and a bit shabby. And therefore, although, let's be truthful, I think I was looking at a lot of magicians who had some pretty grubby and shabby props already. And I thought that was a deliberate decision. Oh, I see. You wanted to look shit. That's fine. Okay. Oh, you choose to wear those clothes. I see. Oh, it's not a character. It's an interesting take. It's not the way I see it. Okay, but you stick with it. Hey, you do you. But then you see, and it literally was this people we're bringing out silver tubes and boxes which are like battered from the 19 whatevers, and there's no care. There's no. I hate the silver tube thing and the rest of it. And I think that's what it was. It was in direct response to seeing. I'm going. Okay, I'm being a muggle now. Okay, I don't know how this trick works, but I know that it's something to do with that shiny chew. It's 100% to do with that shiny box. And whatever you just did then, and that clattery noise, there's some kind of a flap and a hinge going on. So that was it. I thinking, well, so I think originally I looked at, when I was doing characters, I looked at, let's do illusions. I thought I'll do a fake hilarious illusions act, and I had what was called I had a double act idea with me and a woman to do, where she'd be Mermaidia and I forget what my name was. I thought I'd come up there. Basically, it was pre-Burt Wonderstone, but it really was that kind of thing with the hair and my mind. And what would happen was, it would be a telepathy act where she'd be blindfolded and reading the acts. But as I come on, you would hear my thoughts, both our thoughts, over recording. So you'd hear her thinking what she's thinking, and we're just slagging each other off because we hate each other as husband and wife. And so therefore, I'd make a comment, and you'd hear her voice on the voiceover slagging me off or saying something rude. But in the process of doing that, we created a method. Anyway, it never got anywhere because it just didn't. And I wanted to do illusions as well. And I thought, that'd be great. I'll do a piss take illusions act. And I suddenly realized, illusions cost money. You have to maintain them. You have to store them. You then have to find somewhere to perform them. They're big. I'd have to have a van. This is dreadful. It's not good. Oh, by the way, I'd have to be a world-class illusionist before you can take the piss out of it. It's like being the Les Dawson idea of being able to play the piano badly and hilariously. No. You actually have to be a really, really good pianist before you can pretend to be a shit pianist. So you really, to be a hilarious comedy illusion things where things go wrong, I think you have to be a really good illusionist. You can't just do an illusion badly. No, you have to be able to do it properly to take the mick out of it. Otherwise, and I went, this ain't working. Mentalism, though, I can do mentalism and take the mick, and that's where it came from. So your question was, how do I get into making stuff? I looked at everything else that was out there and thought I wasn't really finding stuff for the characters I created. So why didn't I start doing it? And I suddenly realized that I had a brain that could create stuff that had been created before, borrowed from, and I had this thought. So sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but the more I tried not to read books, because what I found was, or research magic, because what I found was that if I say I wanted to achieve this, I could have gone and researched every version of this, but why not just try and solve it? How would I solve it? And I spent years never having read a magic book. I've read very few magic books. I really haven't. But a little bit ashamed about it, but we don't talk about it. But the point being, the history of magic, I'm so sorry. I've got all the books. I've never read them. But the point being is that I like the fact that I've gone around the house and someone said, yeah, but that was invented in 1920. It's just a bit of elastic and a flappy card. And I've gone, is it? No, but I've got a bit of elastic and a flappy card. That's not original. That's fine, but I can still use it. But on the journey to going there, ill-educated and deliberately so, I will have come across something else, or I then have had to find some other device or some other method. So I come up with some stuff which is so bizarre, and then I've shown to magicians. They're going, I don't know how that's done. I said, don't you? He said, no. And then I've shown them. They're going, that makes no sense. I say, yeah, but it works. And they're going, yeah, that's what's worrying. So I created this effect. Basically, at one point, I said I wanted to make all the Labco effects, but entirely mechanical. So I did. So I made it certain things which could only be achieved through electronics, but I made them work in the physical world, because I made them for a cruise ship where there were no electronics, but it looked electronic. Because everyone just said, well, it's got to be electronic. And I went, no, it's not. And then they said, well, how's that done? And I went like that. They went, that's nuts. I'm going, well, yeah. Well, how else are you going to do it? How else are you going to do, and I said, well, how does so silly things, that stuff I've never released actually, and stuff it is practical. I created an effect where your back is turned, you're blindfolded, there's a black box. So your black box, and there are 5 envelopes, okay? And they're just 5 envelopes. And you can go in and gingerly just remove the 5 envelopes. And there's no electronics, and there's not sound, but each envelope that's picked up, even though your back is turned, you're blindfolded and your back is turned, and there's no mirrors and you don't see anything, and you are properly blindfolded, and there's no electronics. So I created it I actually originally created it for Luca Volpe to use on on cruise ships, because a lot of mentalists have problems with frequencies with electronic devices on cruise ships because there's too many stuff going on. In fact, pretty much anywhere in theatres, electronics, sometimes it can be a nightmare. So I developed that. I've never released it because there are certain, do you know what? Because then you just go, it's faff. Sometimes, you know what it is? It's easier as a performer if you're working at a certain level to say, look, I'll go and spend £1,000 and I'll go and buy the Pro Mystic thing. I'll go and buy that because it's rock solid. It'll work. You know, it's not all about saving money sometimes. And I kind of came to that conclusion. I went, yeah, do you know what? I'll just go and buy some electronic this and that and use them very sparingly, but use them in a way that is not like everyone else is using it quite, if you know what I mean. And it's also a device. That's really important. I do think electronics in magic, though, is a machine gun given to a baby. I 100% believe that we are giving machine guns to babies. And it's like, it is. And I remember probably a good example of this is one of the first ever close speak gigs I ever did, and the chap I was with, being a magician way longer than me, and he opened his close-up set with a 100% total throwaway of the invisible deck, and I was like going, oh my god, it's a miracle, right? It is a miracle if presented correctly. You've started with it, say, think of a playing card, yeah. 7 of hearts. See this deck? The only one facing the wrong way is the 7 of hearts. Thank you. And it literally was like that. I was like, what was that? It's like so. But I think the electronics is an it's another version of that, of taking something which is a tool, which is don't forget, these are total miracles. These are inexplicable miracles that you are given with these electronic devices. It's impossible. So you should build it to make it. You can't just casually, the idea of someone using an electronic impression pad and walk around, I can see that some people can make it work. I can get it. If you're a good performer, you know what you're doing. But, you know, just because you got £1,000 and you're starting out, you know, yeah, you write that down there. Oh, hang on a minute. You do the sun. Yeah, thanks a lot. Moving on to the next table. Whoa, you know, there's so many issues I have with it as well. And obviously when they go wrong, not if, it's when they go wrong. What do you do? What's your fallback? A very quick story. I also didn't like to spend money on electronics, so I started making my own, and which I found actually harder than you think. But I created, this is so stupid, I created for a Kockov show. It was a 250-seat theatre, the Wales Millennium Centre. It was a big studio theatre next door. I'd sold it out. It was great, 250 people. And I got my friend, I said, I've made an ESP routine. It's brilliant, all right? The concept of this is great, and you can use this. And in fact, there's such an easy way to do this, okay? So Kockov's on stage. I go and give out a clipboard way up in the gods like that, a clipboard. And on across the top of it has the 5 ESP symbols and 5 sheets of paper and a pen. So I just turn my back and I say, okay, first person, then all the people are sitting in a row. First person draws, they draw a star. Next person, say you can draw the same symbol or a different symbol, and they've got them referenced at the top. Fold a piece of paper and sit on it, okay? So they go across the row, they've got 5 different ESP symbols, okay? And they can look at them, and then I bring them to the stage, and then I can tell them the ESP symbols are done. So all it relied on was my friend was sitting in the row behind and looked over their shoulder to see what they were drawing. But then I took a $7.99 wireless doorbell that I bought from the pound shop, or it was called, and took out the doorbell. So the doorbell worked over 500 feet. When you press the button, it would ring the bell. So all I did is very simple electronics. You take out the doorbell, and I put an old mobile phone motor inside the doorbell. And therefore it's an offset motor. That's how phones vibrate. If people don't know, it basically it's a weight, an offset motor weight, and it buzzes like that. And I put that inside a board rubber for the whiteboard. So I've got the whiteboard rubber in my hand, and the whiteboard ready with a pen. And all he does is he presses the doorbell 5 times to the star, 4 times the rest of it, and it was a $5.99 thumper that would work honestly a quarter of a mile away. We worked it, and the distance was ridiculous. Okay, so in rehearsal, amazing. Incredible. It was absolutely foolproof. So we're in the theatre, studio theatre. I'm about to start, and it's the second routine. I've just done a £1,000 cash gamble on my blank night routine, and now I'm going to do ESP. Joseph Carlsbanks Ryan, and he's the godfather of parapsychology, and we're going to do the symbols. Here's a symbol, the rest of it, write it down, and the Kockov's going, I'm going to tell you what it is. So immediately, I hadn't realised the touring version of Les Miserables had started in the 2,000-seat theatre next door. They turned on 30 wireless headset microphones. This board rubber was literally moving across the table, all on the same frequencies. This is board rubber. So now I'm going, I have no idea what the symbols are. I've built this thing up, right? They've drawn the symbols. I get down there, they bring a piece of paper. Don't tell me what it is. And I say, you do this. I did all 5 of them. I got every single one wrong. Okay, I just guessed. I didn't guess all right. And so I just went. I said, Carl Banks Ryan. I said, wanker. And I got a massive laugh, right? A round of applause. And then they all sat down. Okay, so I did the whole thing as though the whole thing was just a wind-up. Then I did my hidden spike routine and brought someone up. The woman was shitting herself because clearly she saw that this was it. And they said after, someone said, I love the way you did that whole gag with the symbol thing, just to heighten the danger of the hidden spike so you could get it wrong. And I'm going, yeah, that's exactly what I did. And they said it was amazing. It was the woman was terrified now because I used her hands and stuff, because she just seen me mess up. I got a massive laugh. They just thought I was just a really protracted gag because I was doing gags as I was performing. But it taught me a valuable lesson, which is electronics can go wrong. Well, fortunately, I've got comedy to get out of it, but it was an awful moment. Only this, in my big solo show, I had 90 minutes show, and my second effect totally went there. But hey, as long as you can get out of it, you're all right. But so yeah, creating effects. You said, how to get into it? Exactly. I just looked around at other stuff that wasn't working or working for me, and I thought, how could I do it? How would I present an ESP thing using a doorbell? How would I create other stuff? So I've done lots of other electronics that I've created from household objects and stuff, which will eventually go in my book. And I found out stuff, and I've told other magicians who've done stuff. I found out all sorts of bizarre things you can do with phones and stuff like that I know other people have gone on and used, but I've never really progressed it and done anything with it really. But yeah, there we are. So that's how I created lots of different effects doing that.
And you are available to lecture, right? You do lectures.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much got this. I mean, the same lecture I've been banging on for years, which is all performance, and I give away a lot of my original content and stuff and effects that I do. I've done a couple of. I did that one with. So I did the 2 DVDs I did with Alakazam, which is I do a six ungaffed blindfold book test, which was called, which is actually part of a DVD, which is called Diabolical. I did when telephone books existed. I did a telephone number reveal from a telephone directory inside a sealed box. So they bring out they try and do the combination unlock, they open it up, and they choose a number. You go to that page and they read out the first telephone number that comes on that page, whether it's an advert or a residential number, and that number is already written on the board, which is sitting on the floor, which I put down on the floor already. So yeah, that works well. And then a plunge of death is my hidden spike routine that I made out of sink plungers. So you take the top of a sink plunger, and I get a lot of comedy out of that, and put in a masonry screw and do it like that. It was pretty much the safest version of doing it, probably apart from the pain game. And I know Scott Alexander released one as well, but mine's all examinable and it can be done blindfolded. And yeah, it's once you know how it's done, it uses a similar kind of ideas. But that was done. Mark Elsner produced that with Russ Stevens, RSVP, but for Alakazam back in the day. And that had the other one had the 6 ungaffed book test, blindfold book test, which I kind of worked out was had been done before in a way, probably had some other bits and pieces put together, but it was all workable. It was all workable stuff to a degree, but I progressed again. I have another one called the POP book test, piece of piss it stands for, because it literally is a piece of piss, using ungaffed books. And I perform that and lecture in that as well, which is kind of so ridiculous, but it uses a couple of things I've not seen. I don't think anyone else has seen before in terms of locating words in ungaffed books that you can, a lot of it is performance. And I think that comes down to when I give a product, when I release a product. I wrote a 10,000 word book for an effect I did called Flown Away. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was where I use it in my corporate thing the whole time. I'm not just saying it's great. It is great. You can make it yourself, and it's you can choose to fly someone to any of 50 destinations in the world, and they've got 50 different cards in an envelope. They choose one and they isolate another envelope. You know where they've flown to, but you never see what's written on the card until you take it out of the envelope at the end. But you already know. It's and you can make yourself. I cannot tell you how strong it is and how great it is. I do every corporate event I do, and people are literally like, and you can do it surrounded, which is even better. and it literally costs go down to the works for a £5. You can buy a couple of cardboard envelopes, stack of 50 white cards, do it all in pen in Sharpie, and do it. Loads of, it's a 10,000 word book with a PDF, and you can, he wrote 8 other routines, Paul Romani, and you can do it for kids stuff, you can do it for trade shows, you can do it. I lecture in that as well, so I give that away. That was Murphy's release. That was a $50 release. I think it's about 40 quid online, but I give that away in my lecture as well. And then I give the PDF away. You can buy the PDF about 20 quid to how to make it all and stuff. But it's all some really straightforward stuff. I did another one for Magic Box called Deal of Misfortune. I don't know if you ever saw that. If you Google, if you see Deal of Misfortune, that's a great package. Wayne Goodman loves it. Because he uses it around the table, good for a restaurant, good for strolling. Deal of Misfortune, Magic Box own it. And it's a, Michael Murray championed it for me, thankfully. He really liked it. And it's a 3-phase kicker gambling routine with cards. You've got 8 cards, and they're not playing cards, they are numbered cards, and it's all a story about being in Las Vegas and stuff, but it's got 3 layers of kickers on it, and it uses something that'll be the news. But yeah, so oh god, Kockov has done what? Okay, I'll respond to that in a minute. Well, they've found the photo. You always get found out. So I was young, I was foolish, I was in love. What can I say? It was dark. Anyway, and she was alive when I left her. But the you know what I mean? Changed my fingertips so many times. So Deal of Misfortune. That's a commercial effect as well. Anyway, there we are. So lots of different stuff.
So can people get this stuff directly from you? What's the best?
They can, yeah. I mean, they can do. They can. I mean, I would tend to say, I've got to be honest. If you've seen I did a 3-hour lecture for Luca online during lockdown for his online mentalism thing, and once you see me perform it, then you will understand it. I think a lot of the time people have to come to a lecture to get the lecture pack. Basically, I think my lecture pack's like 25 quid, but it's actually 120 quid with the stuff, and I literally just say take it and go with it, because I give a lot of I've got a lot of stuff on private links on video on YouTube, so people can see me performing it live and explaining it as well in HD. I did that as releases. So I mean, if you really know something that I've done, have a look. Google Flown Away. I know there's dealers have still got it comes with a book and a PDF and stuff. So have a look for Flown Away, Deal of Misfortune. They're still selling it. And I know Plunge of Death and Diabolical are still DVDs that I think Peter Nardi still got probably bucket loads of them at the back. The problem is, I think, not the problem at all, but what happens is because character-driven parlor or stage mentalism comedy at the time that it was released in 2007 or something like that, it was pre trailers. So the online trailers where trailers sell everything. So I think these and people think, oh, I have to be funny in order to perform this stuff, or I can't perform your stuff because I don't do a comedy character. Or I'm like, oh no. The whole point is that you should be able to take any of and the best thing to do, advice I say, is that when you see if you buy a trick and the rest of it, then for the love of God, do not do what they do in the same lines and presentation that they do on that video. You've got to find your own way of doing it, because it's your character, it's your persona, and you've got to make it your own, because without making it your own, someone else will go, oh yeah, I've seen that one. I saw a magician doing that at a wedding the other week. The one where they're, yeah. And they're hearing the same lines. And believe it or not, people do pick up on that. But I do believe Greg Wilson years ago, when I saw him lecture, made a point, which is that he said, oh, there are more nuns in the world than there are magicians. But how often do you see a nun? And I said, yeah, but how often do you see a nun who can do magic? That's even rarer. But the point being is that people think, oh my God, I'm just doing an ambitious card. They've all seen it. No, people really haven't seen magicians. There's 6 billion people on the planet. You know, majority of people will never have seen a close-up magician. You can walk in a room of 100 people, maybe 10 have, maybe, if you're pushed. And most people have never heard of Darren Brown, right? It's still true. If you said Darren Brown, I don't know, certain literally haven't. People like Dynamo, I don't know, you know, David Copperfield, I've heard of that. And David Blaine, I've heard of David Blaine. Maybe heard of Dynamo, to be fair. But, you know, Darren Brown, no, what mentalism, mind reading, what's that? People are just, we think everyone lives in this world where people know everything. They just don't. And what's more, and the other thing is that the 95% of people do not give a damn how it's done. They don't care. They just want to laugh and be entertained. So they go, oh, there is that percentage you want, oh, I've got to know how it's done. I've got to know how it's done. Or they'll be whistling with a friend saying, oh, yeah, you picked up 2 cards there as one, and the rest of it. And I call them out on it. I said, that's YouTube magic. Let me. Yeah. So dealing with people as well is always an interesting one as well. But yeah, so get a trick, make it your own. I say that, yeah, I truly believe you've got to make it your own.
That's amazing. I'm going to ask you one last question.
Yeah, do.
One final question, which is, what's next? And this is a question I ask a lot of my guests, but I mean, you've achieved so much, you know, I mean, if you just take one aspect of what you have, would you like to, if you ask most magicians, would you feel happy if, you know, at the end of your career, you'd have your own theatre that you could perform in? Yes. What about if you released tricks and lectured all over the world and released really popular DVDs? Yes. What about if you performed at a really high level, at a corporate level? Yeah, you've done all that and more, and you're nowhere near the end of your career. So you've done a lot. And you've achieved a lot, you know.
Yeah, I think. So I made a bucket list before. It's kind of been my magic bucket list before, just as I started, probably around literally as I became a magician, 2003, and then that was 2004 maybe as well. But then by 2007, I ticked the first one off the top of the list, which I'd performed I'd performed on stage in Las Vegas in front of 5,000 people, and it was actually an underwater. It was a Houdini glass trunk underwater escaping as well, because I'd done escapology. I used to own the Houdini milk churn, and I did an original take on that as well. It was quite interesting. Anyway, that was another story, another video, stand up. But then it was Wayne Dobson's glass trunk that he did on his TV show, and Russ Stevens used to do it in his Mystère. Anyway, they shipped it to Las Vegas, and I was the body double in the tank for someone. Anyway, you know, kind of things that work. But you genuinely are in this tank, and you're genuinely holding your breath. And it genuinely was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. It was absolutely awful. It was awful. It was awful. It was awful. And it's another story for another day, because Russ would say it wasn't that bad. And I go, you know, it really was. It really, no, it really was awful. But that said, so I kind of ticked off that thing, and then I thought, but then I had to learn to be like an illusions assistant. So I had to help these women in the week. We had 5 days to learn to teach all these women to do 6 illusions, and there were models, supermodels being brought around the world to do it, and it was really weird. So we taught these box jumpers, I don't know if that's the right term now, but these women to do the splicer illusion, and they were coming there walking through the mirror illusion. They'd never done magic in their life. We had 4 days to teach them all this stuff for this one-off $1.5 million one-off 45-minute show, and I'm at the finale, which is I'm in this water tank. Anyway, blah 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 blah. Sure. So I'd tick that off the bucket list. So what else is left? I honestly don't think I've started, and I'm worried that I'll run out of time for what I want to achieve, because you're never going to really achieve what you want to achieve. I'd like to have mostly have my own TV show. I'd like to have my own run a theatre, West End theatre run. I'd like to be able to lecture more and do other stuff and do other bigger shows, bigger corporate shows, and the rest of it. I'd like to do all of those things. I'd like to spend more time to come up with other magic and write this book that's never been written that I always talk about. So yeah, and obviously I'd like to be a straight stand-up. So without any magic, I'd love just to be able to me as a stand-up, which is a bit difficult. And then yeah, I've just got so many other stuff. I haven't even talked about the kind of stuff I do with audio and editing, which I love to integrate with a lot of the shows and stuff. How I integrate, you know, I think in this current show I've got about 18 different audio tracks that I bring in and out. That comes from a radio background and making audio editing with the rest of it. I'd like to do stuff with filming more with the cameras. I've got multiple cameras. I like to film more stuff and make more video stuff. Yeah, I'm never going to run out of things to do and things that I want to achieve. And interestingly, people say, oh well, I can easily rate my skill level. I always like to think my skill level. So I think as a magician, if 10 is your Copperfields, that kind of level, if it's like that. In fact, let's give them all 9, because 10 can never really be achieved. Let's give them 9 point whatever, because they'll always say they're not 10. But I think that on a good day, that I'm a solid 5 as a magician. I think I'm okay. I can do you know, a whole classic force routine. My classic force is really good. I was taught by Phil Jay as well, who's brilliant, a guy in Wales here, who's one of the first close-up magicians in the UK anyway. But anyway, so the classic force is good. So I can do all of that. I can do card locations, do that kind of stuff. But basically my card skills is there. And I think that that I call myself good on a 5 on a good day, 5 or 6. Okay, I'm an okay magician. But when it comes to entertainment, I think I may even be good 7 one day. Maybe I'm okay, maybe an 8, pretty good and entertaining. And that combined gives me maybe a 6 or 7 overall as an entertainer, performer, and a magician.
because there's always that, you've got to leave that room at the top and the rest of it. Have I achieved everything? No. There's always going to be someone better than you, funnier than you, greater than you, come up with better effects than you, write better, speak better, talk better, act better, make more people laugh. But I'm okay where I am. I just know that will I achieve it all? I hope I'll achieve it in my lifetime, but never stop. You always got to keep working and working hard, because the moment that I don't feel nervous before I go out and perform every single time, the moment you don't feel nervous is the moment you know that something inside you has died. You realize there's no longer that hunger. If you can't show enthusiasm and love for what you do, then you've got no right to stand in front of anybody and expect them to appreciate what it is that you do. And I hope I know I talk a lot, talk quickly as well, but maybe because I think time is short, but I always think that it's, you got to be enthusiastic. You've got to show you love to the core of your being, what you do, because without that, then no one's going to ever invest in you as a human being or as a performer, and they're not going to laugh, and they're just not going to be involved. But if you show it in your eyes, and it is your eyes, you've got to show that you really love what you do, and I hope that comes across.
Oh, it does, and then some. And that's probably the biggest piece of advice that you've shared the whole interview, which, by the way, and I'm not just saying this has become one of my favorite interviews. I like I said at the beginning, I've been a big fan of you. I've been a big fan of your style for a very long time, and we don't really know each other.
No.
And
you forget the first time that we met, though. Now, the first time that we met, and I know it because you were frightened. You were absolutely terrified. And it's when I was with Rune Clan, and we were in Blackpool. We were downstairs, and I was Gareth the Gimp. So I'm a full Gimp. Do you remember now? Are you remembering now?
Yes, I do.
You were trying to record a thingy show. Now, remember that between you and that young lad who used to run around, I forget it, when you were doing the other show, you absolutely terrified, because Rune Clan was doing this effect where he was doing the sign coin to him, and the guy I think he went to prison, the guy Sleeve Star guy who did release Sleeve Star, wasn't it? So he was doing something. These coins were appearing everywhere. So Rune Clan was doing it, and I'm dressed as Gareth the Gimp. People who don't know, I was wearing rubber boots, just rubber shorts, and naked apart from a gimp mask, okay, as Gareth the Gimp. And I was doing signed coin to anus, okay? Signed coin to anus for Rune Clan. And even Rune Clan, as we know, he'll do his ham sandwich thing and the rest of it. Even he was going, what is this? I was just... It was, and I just remember seeing you. No, I saw it. You were literally what? And you literally left. You actually physically left. People were laughing so hard. It was so wrong. There was so much level of wrongness. It was like 3 a.m. in your hotel, and I just remember you going, "That's Craig Petty. Why does he look so frightened?" And I'm going, he may not like fetish rubber gear. I don't know. I've obviously opened a can of mental words from. This is probably some deep therapy he needs to go through. But yeah, sign coins to anus. He goes, Craig, come on, examine the coin. Yeah, you ran away.
That. I think you
put that in your therapy. That's going to have to come out in the session next week. No, I remember. Yeah, no, I remember why I can't wear a swimming cap. I can't put the swimming cap on. It just reminds me. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but that's the real first time I saw you. Yeah, you did.
I remember seeing Rune the following year, and that's all he could talk about.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, I think it's damaged him as well, to be honest, a little bit.
Yeah, he mentioned it. Yeah, it came up in a lawsuit. Actually, that's what the phone call was about just now. I've got to fly over there to Denmark. Anyway, yeah. But look, thank you for inviting me, and I hope you got everything you needed.
I'm going to put links down in the description and at the bottom of the screen for the theatre. Yeah. If you're in Barry, go get tickets and support you, obviously.
Thank you.
Also, for places where people can buy your products, your Instagram. I'm going to put everything on here.
Great.
People need to support you. And if anybody's watching this that organises lectures for conventions, it's an incredibly insightful, intelligent and hilarious lecture that really, is well worth.
It's good fun, and the thing I would say is it's I do try and give value for money as well. And if you need me to do, I do a lot of magic. I do a lot of magic dinners for societies, after dinner performances as well. And don't for 1 minute think, oh God, it's always going to be super rude, over 18, the rest of it. The one thing I always guarantee is that I will always adapt my style, what I say and my language to suit the audience in front of me. Otherwise, I couldn't do weddings, I couldn't do holiday parks, and I couldn't do corporates where you can't say certain things or do certain things. So I always adapt and that's the thing, is flexibility. You always got to adapt what you do to suit it. I couldn't go into a comedy club and follow someone who's had
tirade of rude language and not mirror that in some way because they'll expect it. But that's me. I love to swear. That's the other thing is I love swearing. I love it. I love being rude. I love swearing, but I can tailor that as well. Yeah. So that's just the way I work.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Jasper, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Guys,
Pleasure.
leave a comment down below because Jasper will see it and let him know how awesome this interview has been. I think it's been absolutely incredible. And don't forget, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow us. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with a whole bunch of videos. I'll see you again. Jasper, one more time, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Good to see you. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you again.